Hello and welcome. My name is Joe Cass, Senior Director at S&P Global Ratings and the host and the creator of the FII podcast. On this episode, we have Richard Attias, founder and chairman of Richard Attias and Associates and CEO of the FII Institute. So just a quick reminder that the views of the external guests are their views alone and they do not represent the views of S&P Global Ratings. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
So I thought we might start with an overview of the FII Institute. Could you share what the FII stands for, its main objectives, the kind of events it hosts, and also how you became involved as CEO?
So the FII Institute is a not-for-profit foundation. I would say it's a new generation of not-for-profit foundation. It was born almost 5 years ago in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And what was the idea behind the FII Institute is to become the vehicle of multiple initiatives which will have an impact on humanity. So the ambition is very high. When we talk about humanity, we're talking about, my God, billions of people and how to help them to have a better life. So why we came with this ambition? Because in fact, before the creation of the FII Institute, the Kingdom created the FII, the Future Investment Initiative, which is a platform, a conference, which started in 2017, which became almost from day one, the largest conference on investment. The place where investors from all over the world were gathering from the north, from the south, from the west, from the east of our planet during 3 days to understand where the money should go in terms of geographies and in terms of sectors. And this initiative was launched by PIF, the Public Investment Fund, the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia. So after the success of 3 consecutive editions, we came to the conclusion that this conference should become independent and should be owned by a vehicle which will be by itself totally independent financially and also independent in terms of governance to be sure that we will create a sustainable movement. So this is how the FII Institute was born. And we have a board of trustees, which is chaired by the governor of PIF because he was the initiator. But we have the former Prime Minister of Italy, Matteo Renzi. We have Peter Diamandis, amazing founder of X Prize. We have Noel Quinn, the former CEO of HSBC, and many more. I have the privilege to be one of the board members. And I was asked to be also the CEO because I was, in total humility, the driving force behind the FII conference itself, thanks to my 30 plus years experience of creating international conferences all over the world. As you know, I was for 15 years the executive producer of the World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos and many other. I started the Clinton Global Initiative. So I have a little experience on this type of platform. And what we do at the FII Institute, above and beyond just hosting and creating conferences, because we have FII in Riyadh every year as a flagship event in October, almost 4,000 or 5,000 CEOs coming together with some public figures. But we have one edition in Miami every year in February, where we really focus more on AI, new technology. You know what Miami is becoming today. And of course, we have one in Latin America. We hosted the first edition in Brazil a few weeks ago, and Asia. So we're trying to be on all continents. But we also have, as a particularity of this foundation, 2 other pillars. One is called Think, which is a lab of ideas. We, every year, issue indexes to challenge the world leaders. The coming in few weeks will be what we call the priority compass, understanding what are the priorities of our citizen every year. When we started the priority compass, this was 3 years ago, everyone thought that the priority number 1 for citizen was climate change. And we knew that after COVID, the priorities were changing. And we were right. Priority number 1, cost of living. Priority number 2, healthcare. Priority number 3, security, immigration, all over the world. Priority number 5, climate change. So we do indexes one on priorities, one on healthcare, very focused on healthcare to understand how governments are leading with their healthcare systems. And we are issuing another one soon about the future of work to see how countries are managing this evolution on this important topic, which is employment, etc. So this is what FII Institute is about. And the last pillar is we are not just a think tank, we are a do tank, which means we have a pillar called ACT. We invest. We invest the money that we are getting from our strategic partners, because now we became self-independent financially, thanks to 35 corporations who are supporting what we do, supporting the initiatives we do, supporting our work. To mention some of them: HSBC, Aramco, Visa, Reliance. So a lot of international corporations. And we are using part of the financial contribution to also support some startups. So we have a department called ACT, where we are supporting startups to be sure that they can have an impact also on humanity in our main pillars, sectors, which are AI and robotics, healthcare, education, and sustainability. So sorry being long, but I wanted at least to frame what the FII Institute is doing and is about.
Fantastic. Thanks, Richard. Richard, can you talk a bit more about the upcoming FII8 conference in Riyadh, the flagship event, as you said? What can attendees expect, and what will the areas of focus be at the conference?
You know, for the past 7 years, it will be the 8th edition, we were, in total humility, shaping the road of investors. In 2017, the main topic was the big shift. We knew that the shift between West and East, North and South was happening. And people were not still, now it's obvious, but people were not really realizing that it will be not just a trend, but it will be a long-term sustainable direction. That the East was growing, that the emerging economies were booming from this part of the world, and that the global South will start to exist stronger and stronger. So we started in 2017 by helping investors and CEO to understand the trends. And we did that for many years, including in the middle of COVID. We are the only international conference which still happened in 2020 and 2021. And we knew, not because we are genius, not at all, it's because we are an amazing observatory teams. And we are extremely well connected to global CEOs and world leaders. So we knew that the world was not, I would say, in danger or at risk. We knew that we should look at the half full glass and not only at the half glass. So this is why the theme of our FII at that time was the neo-renaissance. We knew that the world will come in some sectors stronger, bigger, more resilient. This is why we were investing a lot on new health initiatives, because we learned a lot from COVID about how the healthcare systems were broken. So in 2024, which is in a few weeks, we are sending a strong message, which is the infinite horizons. If you really want to invest for good, if you really want to invest for humanity, if you really want to have a new compass to help you to invest in the right direction, then we're extremely optimistic. We have infinite horizons. Yes, many challenges exist today. Technology is booming, and everyone is scared about this AI new revolution, about the ethics related to AI, how far AI will go, are we losing jobs, etc. No, we need to look at this infinite possibility that AI is giving to us in many sectors. We are looking at renewable energy horizons and how the new equation of energy has to be built by solar energy, wind energy, hydrogen. So we'll have multiple conversations on energy, entertainment, sport, when I say future of all these industries, on technology, on AI, on the new Africa, we should not ignore this continent, which is 1+ billion people, which will definitely has to be included in the global economy. So we are hosting a mini summit on Africa to understand how Africa is doing. It's not just one country. We're talking about 54 countries. Each country has its own specificity. They still have their challenges, corruption, governance, but at the same time, they are reservoir of natural resources, and we need to see how we can help them to transform these resources to create jobs locally, to definitely become new markets, new emerging market. The future of ESG, to really a new framework for ESG, because we consider at the FII Institute that the current ESG framework is not inclusive enough. So we suggested an ESG 2.0. If it is adopted by investors, just in Asia alone, this could unlock almost $5 trillion of new investment. Then we will be talking also a lot about the supply chains, logistics. The supply chains were broken these past few months, as you know. So we need to look at the future of this sector. We'll be talking about many other areas, infrastructures, and to just think about other the future of VCs, venture capital, how the money will go, assets management. We'll be talking also about other sectors like I would say the real estate sector, the retail, the future of retail, which is also challenging now. So when you come to FII, you spend 4 days really understanding through unexpected conversations, to be honest, what is happening and what will happen in multiple sectors. And as you know, this year, FII is happening few days just before the US election. So it's important to have this conversation about what do we think and what the expert thinks will be the consequences in terms of economy and geoeconomics of the result of the US election, which is very tight, as you know.
Great. Thanks, Richard. Richard, you mentioned it there. Can you go into a bit more detail about the FII Institute's partnership with PIF? How do you incorporate their objectives into your event, and what's really been your broader experience with working alongside them?
PIF is the founding partner of the FII Institute. So it is one of the most important sovereign wealth funds in the world. So their agenda is to invest globally in multiple sectors to support the diversification of the economy of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So at the FII Institute, we're a very strong believer on the fact that you will not improve any economy and create jobs and build inclusive economies unless you encourage foreign direct investment and diversification of the economy, which, by the way, are two of the mandates of PIF. So our horizons, our objectives are almost quite similar. So we're extremely happy and extremely proud to have the PIF entity on our side because they have also access at multiple international corporations. And we are totally autonomous at the FII Institute on the way we are building the program, totally autonomous on the way we recruit speakers. So in terms of editorial and management, we are totally independent. But the beauty is our chairman is also the governor of PIF. So when we meet time to time every 2-3 months, he's inspiring us a lot on the trends happening. Because when you are the governor of a sovereign wealth fund, you know very well what is happening globally in multiple sectors because you are, by definition, a global player. So this is why we always start our FII conferences by an amazing session, which became now a benchmark for many conferences. We call it the Board of Game Changers. So we have this 90 minutes opening session which is a debate where we have usually people like Jimmy Dimon from Morgan Stanley, we have from JP Morgan, sorry, we have Larry Fink from BlackRock, Steven Schwarzman from Blackstone, Jane Fraser from Citi, Yasir Al-Rumayyan, of course, chairman of the board. We have many other big players from Asia, from India, from Africa, Patrice Motsepe, from Rainbow Capital, South Africa. And for 90 minutes, we hear from them what is their vision and where do they see the main trends, the challenges that we have to take in consideration. So this is an illustration of also of what PF is bringing to us, because they are part of these conversations more than once in a year. So definitely, and working with PIF, great chemistry. We know each other very well because we started together FII almost 8 years ago. So they are not just a partner, they are friends, and we are extremely complementary. And we are using a lot of their expertise and experience to expand and to also be in touch with global CEOs who are working with PIF, who are partnering with PIF. And of course, the governor of PIF has multiple mandates. He's also the chairman of Aramco, and he's member of the board of multiple international corporations. So this is a great plus for us to be able to be connected with the global economy.
Perfect. Thanks, Richard. Richard, you mentioned then you work very closely with the governor of the PIF, His Excellency Yasir Al-Rumayyan, and he also serves as the chairman on the FII Institute. I've seen him interview you a few times, as you mentioned. What's it like working with the governor, and what kind of things have you learned from him?
Oh, you know, he's a very inspiring leader, because he has a privilege to be working very closely with the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, who is another visionary leader, amazing, because at the end of the day, FII was his idea, you know. So we are benefiting a lot from this, I would say, leadership. His Excellency Yasir Al-Rumayyan is the one who taught me a few years ago the importance of data. And this was before even all these trends with AI. And it's thanks to him and his vision that FII Institute is becoming a data-driven organization. And you will see at FII8, almost all debate, all conversation are supported by data. And as a civil engineer, I know how important are data, because I am a man of facts and figures, you know. So for me, it's extremely stimulating, extremely refreshing. He always raises the bar, so nothing is granted. We are trying to always be more ambitious on what we do. And we share the same conviction, which is that the key success and the key parameters of success of what we do is content. So we need always to be obsessed by the quality of the content. And it's very stimulating, as I say, to work with His Excellency and to also hear from him, because he's traveling so much. What are the trends in Asia, in China, in Latin America, in Europe, because he's part of all these global conversations. So very, very stimulating.
Great. And Richard, putting your hat on as founder and chairman of Richard Attias and Associates, in such a packed calendar for CEOs, for decision makers, how do you go about creating an event that really stands out, something that attracts individuals? Essentially, how do you create this perfect event?
Oh my God, this is a $1 billion question. But, you know, as you perfectly say, Joe, so many conferences exist in the world. And the beauty of our conferences really is that we're obsessed by the quality of the content, as I just said. To be sure that you will have the right people, to be sure that you will be one of the top 3 choices of the conference to attend, on the conference to come back, on the conference to support, is definitely 3 parameters. Number 1, content. The content has to be absolutely accurate. You should be extremely transparent. And the content needs to be supported by unexpected conversations. You need to put the right people on stage and not to host conversations that you can watch on TV every day or that you can read on any newspaper. So unexpected conversation, the format itself of the conferences, this is one of our special, I would say, chemistry, which is extremely important. And then, to really attract global CEOs, it's not just about quantity of sessions or quantity, it's quality. So we put a lot of effort of having our conferences very well organized, where you don't lose time, where the logistic is perfect, even if perfection doesn't exist, but at least excellent, where time is money for all these people. So it's extremely important to be sure that they will not lose time between sessions for logistics, for accreditation, for everything related to your comfort. And also what they like to our conferences, I think, they are extremely inclusive. The media, which are an extremely important part of our conferences, because thanks to the media, what is discussed is shared with everyone. And we have a lot of content produced, so knowledge is shared. So the media are always in the heart of my conferences. I never put the media on the side. Like, let's have a media center on the other side of the street. No, the media are literally in the center of my conference center. Why? Because I want the media to have access to everyone and everything. And this year at FII, we have more than 40 media partners and more than 400 journalists, which will be part of our community. And last but not least, which is extremely important, is inclusion in terms of generations. You will see the old guard, the global CEOs who are in their 70s, and you will find some young entrepreneurs and startups who are in their 20s. And this combination, this mix of people is extremely refreshing, and both are extremely demanding on having access to the others. Because the old guard, as I say, are very interesting to understand the new generation. This is how you will even reinvent your own company, by understanding the new consumers, the trends in terms of technology, etc. And the opposite, the young entrepreneurs, they want to learn from lessons from the eldest who developed great success, and also potential investors in their startups or projects. So we're extremely inclusive. The demography of our conferences is unique. And the geographies, you have people from China, from Japan, from Korea, from Africa, from Europe, from Latin America. We are probably, in total humility, the most global conference in terms of citizenship and in terms of representation from what our humanity is about. And last but not least, we invite a lot of NGOs, because it's extremely important also to give a voice to the people who are on the ground, trying also every day to have an impact by giving access to education, access to clean water, and we're supporting a lot of some of these NGOs and foundations on the ground.
Great. Thanks, Richard. Richard, prior to the FII Institute, you founded the New York Forum and you co-founded the Global Clinton Initiative. And as you said, for 13 years, you were the executive producer for the World Economic Forum and the annual meeting at Davos. Given this expertise, what tips would you give to anyone watching, anyone listening, who wants to improve or grow their own professional network?
Networking is extremely important. Today, we are living in an era where we are spending too much time totally isolated with these type of devices. Okay, we spend almost, I don't know how many hours on social media, on emails. We think we are connected. No, we are totally disconnected. The real connection is meeting people in person, to look in your eyes, to feel the chemistry. This starts by when you take the metro or the bus every morning. Just say hi to the people around you. Just have empathy. Don't be just in your bubble. Forget your device for a few minutes. You need to be connected to real people. You can do that by going to sports club when you practice sport and you see people, real people with you. And you become friends with some of them, or at least you will learn about people. My advice, love people. You know, as a civil engineer, I was supposed to build bridges. I decided to not go in that direction. I decided to build bridges between people, to create platforms of dialogue, to be sure that people will be connected. Trust me, I'm not trying to be a humanist, but it's so refreshing to know who are the people around you. When I go to any city, the first thing I do is to take a taxi, and I speak a lot with the taxi driver. I love taxi drivers because they are the pulse of any city, of any country. You learn a lot from them. So this is how you not only get knowledge, but also by talking to people. When you are in a restaurant, just try to connect for 2 minutes with the people next to you. And this is how you will build a network. And of course, multiply the opportunity of networking with people. This is why conferences, the right conferences, are a great plus. Because when you attend this conference, of course, it should not be a full-time job. You need to pick the right conferences, which will help you to be connected to the business community, to maybe the media, to be connected with some specific communities, to help your network to grow, to guide you, to inspire you, not just to be opportunistic and to say, oh my God, how can I make more money? No. Meeting people is not just about making money. Sorry. It's making you more rich from inside. Okay, which is extremely important. So this is a humble advice I will give to all the next young generations who are obsessed by TikTok and Meta and Facebook and blah. No, please. It's good to be connected that way, but also be connected in the real traditional manner, which is in person. You need to be real. Okay? This is extremely important.
Great. And Richard, after decades of engaging with world leaders, CEOs, change makers, are there any shared characteristics or traits that stand out to you within that group?
World leaders and CEO leaders, you know, they have the rage really to achieve their goals and their ambition. You cannot become a leader unless you have a vision, the passion, and the rage. So they all have this common denominator. That's point number one. Point number two, some leaders, they know how to be surrounded, and some leaders, they are doing a mistake of not being surrounded by the right people. This is what is making the winners and the losers. You need to have a team. And there is no way you can succeed as a leader unless you have a team. Extremely important. And a good team. So I see this common denominator also between some leaders based on success or failures. And last but not least, I would say that Usually they have also a common denominator. They are very inspiring people. I will not mention any current leader, but I will mention some leaders who pass away, who really are the definition of leadership. And they have something unique. Nelson Mandela. I had the privilege to meet him in Davos, and I will share with you a short anecdote. 2 minutes before he was going on stage, he told me, "Oh, Richard, sorry, I have to go to the restrooms." So we were obliged to walk for a few minutes because they were not so close by. And I was working with Nelson Mandela, an icon. We went to the place, and while he was doing what he had to do, he told me, "You know, Richard, the most important thing in the world are the youth." And this was years ago. So he already understood, after so many years in jail, becoming the president of South Africa, that there is nothing we can do great in the world unless we include the youth. We hear from the youth, and we work with the young people.
Great. Thanks, Richard. So, Richard, last question now. Over the course of your career, what's the best piece of advice you've been given, and who gave it to you?
You know, I had the privilege to become a very young CEO at the age of 29. It was in Paris. I just left IBM, and we created with some friends a computer leasing company. And the major shareholder decided after 1 year to appoint me as a global CEO of the company. And I was managing people who were all in their 40s and 50s. So it was a big challenge. It taught me two things. One day he came, he told me, "Listen, Richard, less is more." By trying to do everything, you will do everything bad. So just focus on your priorities. Less is more. And he's absolutely right. We see so many people who are trying to achieve many things at the same time, and then the day you don't achieve anything. So you need to be focused. Focus, focus. Extremely important. So this was my ex-boss, the first boss I had. The second is an advice I got from my late father, who was always inspiring me on everything I do. I'm trying to share that with many of my staff, my colleagues, the kids, the grandkids. Complicated to be adopted. I'm calling that the rule of the 3 H. Number one, humility. There is nothing you can achieve in the world if you don't have humility with you. You need to always be humble. Even if you become extremely successful, you need to be humble. Humility as H number one. Humanism, H number two. You need to love people. You need to love people. You need to have a certain part of humanity with you to be sure that you carry empathy. You carry compassion. Extremely important. Don't be selfish. And number three, always keep your sense of humor, because you need to relativize everything. You need to keep your sense of humor. So with humanism, humanity, and humor, you can achieve great things and you can enjoy life, which is the most important.
Brilliant. Well, that was fantastic. Thank you so much, Richard, for your time today. And for everyone watching, everyone listening, see you next time on Fixed Income in 15.